Hello and welcome to MFSN The Hub. I'm Ross the Boss. I'm here with Flat to the Bone, Casey Scheinfeld. He's
Dejected
here.
Yankees fan.
He's here, and you can see the Yankee emblem right over his head.
And the look of depression.
3-0. We'll talk baseball for about a minute just to rub it in Casey's face. I'm not a Dodger fan.
You're not a Dodger fan. You just live out there.
I'm not a Dodger fan. I just live in LA, but I'm not a Dodger fan, and I'll say that to begin with. But Casey Scheinfeld, Aaron Judge, he just fell off the table, and his legacy for playoffs is just ruined. Ruined, Casey Scheinfeld.
He's gonna need either to carry them to win at least 2 or 3 games, or they're gonna need to make the World Series again, and it's gonna be on his back, because wow, has he looked awful.
I mean, he's just not missing by an inch. He's missing by like 2 feet. I mean, it's that bad.
And when he hits, it's off the end of the bat, or it's nothing looks good.
I mean, everybody was excited for Ohtani and Judge, the big matchups.
And Ohtani's been pretty much so irrelevant.
Yeah, I mean, he's batting 200,
Freeman.
I think, in the postseason, and but whatever. He's not playing up to par either. But this guy named Freddie Freeman, 5 home runs in 5 games in the playoffs.
5 home runs in his last 5 World Series games. So it's going back to his Atlanta World Series. So he homered in the last 2 games of that one and the first 3 of this one. So, I think if we get swept, I think that's the nail in the coffin for Juan Soto staying a Yankee. I don't think he'll want to stay, but we'll see.
The Dodgers threw their name in the hat. We'll talk football. I apologize. We're not talking football, but we're World Series, so get over it. The Dodgers said, "Well, we're interested in Soto." If the Dodgers sign Soto,
oh my gosh,
they take over the evil empire title of the Yankees.
By far.
I mean, they signed Soto. I mean,
the Mets are trying the same thing. I mean, how much money? They don't have many more, but how much money did they give Scherzer and Verlander? And now they're throwing their hat in the Soto ring, like they're trying to buy him too. Yeah. So, all right, week 9.
Week 9, Casey Scheinfeld.
Well, since we're talking New York depression, did you see how well my Giants played last night?
I don't know if you're being facetious, but they looked good in the second half. In all seriousness, they didn't. I mean, your boy Tracy, who's still under 60%,
seems like the real deal.
I mean, 100-something yards, and he had that big break for 45. They were down by 8 with 2 minutes left in the ball, but I mean, they couldn't do anything with that. But they didn't look that great. You're right. I mean,
oh my God,
we're trying to be optimistic with you, but again, the Giants are the Giants. They're just a bad team, Casey, with bad fantasy players. And
no, they have decent fantasy players. They just don't have a quarterback who can make them fantasy dominators.
No. And the thing is, he teases you. He'll have a great game, and then, maybe I should pick him up. And then, no, you shouldn't pick him up.
Well, it was interesting listening to Troy Aikman last night. I'm not always a huge Troy Aikman fan, but he was talking about Daniel Jones, and he's showing replays, and he's like, he doesn't see the receiver open until they're already open, at which point it's too late to throw it. He was talking about he waits to see him in the window before he releases it instead of anticipating the window. And it made a lot of sense because you see a couple of those plays where it's like he has to go high and expose his receiver to getting big hits because he's late throwing the ball, instead of, if he'd anticipate better, he could get it on target, and Neighbors or Slate could or Slayton could run.
Slayton had a big game. Your boy Slayton had over 100 yards receiving, and Tracy had over 100 yards rushing. So fantasy wise,
and a 45-yard touchdown.
Albert, welcome to the party, pal. But again, the Giants. Let's talk injuries, Casey Scheinfeld. Don't want to talk waiver wire.
Stephon Diggs is the big one, obviously.
That's the big one. He's out for the year.
Torn ACL. That means, and it's late enough in the season that it brings the beginning of the next season into question for him.
So Collins is gone.
Yeah, Tank Dell is suddenly all by himself.
Tank Dell is there. I think they have Robert Woods, don't they?
They have Robert Woods and John Mechie.
John Mechie from Alabama.
I think what you're going to see now is Deontay Johnson might end up a Houston Texan. I think they might pull the trigger trying to get him.
I like that.
Because they're in Super Bowl mode, and they can't wait 2 to 3 weeks for Nico Collins to come back. They gotta play to win now.
They got to trade right now.
Look at this. Albert Merriquin asks, "What are your thoughts on Zay Flowers and Deontay Johnson now?"
Well, Zay Flowers is the main guy in Baltimore.
Yeah, was he hurt? Was that what happened with him?
he got hurt during the game. It was last week or this week, but he got hurt and he sat out a couple quarters. I like Zay Flowers. Baltimore's throwing the ball and they're running the ball with Derrick Henry. I think even though they lost to the Browns, Casey Scheinfeld, which is no one expected that. That's a great win. And we'll talk about waiver wire.
Oh, wow. Wait, hold on. Deontay Johnson is a Baltimore Raven. That must have just happened not too long ago.
Casey Scheinfeld giving us breaking news with Albert's help.
Thank you, Albert, for pointing that out.
So Deontay Johnson going to Baltimore.
The Ravens.
So what does that mean? Fantasy-wise, yes, that will cut into Zay Flowers' production 100%.
And Rashad Bateman was playing well too, so that's weird. I mean, I guess Zay Flowers, they must have something they didn't like about Zay Flowers, but
he must be, maybe he's hurt. I don't know. But again, that means Xavier Legette of the Carolina becomes their number one receiver now. Xavier Legette. I love saying that name. I don't know why. But maybe we'll pick him up during the waiver. They have to throw the ball to somebody. So, Casey, another big move in football today that I read is the Indianapolis Colts is not starting Richardson, their number one pick from 2 years ago. They're starting Falco.
Well, if you watch, I think at one point he was 2 for 14. And then at one point in the game, I don't know if you saw this or not, he had 2 plays where he scrambled and he pulled himself out of the game because he was tired.
Sounds good. Sounds like a real winner. Sounds like a real winner to me.
Do you think that's going to win the locker room when you're talking to your offensive linemen and asking them to be gritty and gutty and look at Zach Martin and say, hey, bud, I need you to really dig down deep and push through. I know you're tired. When he can look at him and say, you mean like you did?
Yeah, exactly. Okay, thanks, Case. That was good. But Joe Falco, I like Joe. I thought Cleveland should have kept
Josh Downs relevant now. He's suddenly a fantasy pickup.
And Pierce?
Because and Pierce a little bit, but more Downs because he's good at kind of finding those spaces and Flacco is good at finding him. So
Casey, let's talk waiver wire. Let's talk. I'll put a somewhat order to this. Let's talk quarterback. I mean, I'm looking at the quarterbacks under 60%, and I like what I saw from Winston. I like what I've been letting him throw the ball 300 yards, 3 touchdowns. I mean,
Jameis Winston, look, he is, to me, he might be one of my favorite players in the NFL. Just because, why? Because he's fun to watch, man. Because he doesn't care how covered you are. If he wants to go deep, he's going to chuck it deep. He's fine with throwing 300 yards with 3 touchdowns, but a few interceptions, right? And that's he has that gunslinger mentality, and he doesn't ever get angry or upset. It doesn't look like. I think the team's the guys are gonna rally around him because he's that kind of player.
They beat, I think, the hottest team in the AFC.
Yeah, in Baltimore,
in Kansas City. I mean, they beat them, and with Winston and with a bunch of guys that were losing every week.
Right. Now, if you're in a league that does, a point for every 20 yards and 4 points for a passing touchdown, I mean, you're already getting, 27 points. If you're getting, and you have to subtract a few for interceptions, you would take 22, 23 points every week. So he might not be great for NFL standards in terms of what the NFL is looking for a franchise quarterback. For fantasy, he's such a deep threat guy.
Yeah,
with passing the ball, and he loves to throw it deep. He's going to make, obviously, Cedric Tillman, your cover boy, instantly becomes probably
I did pick the cover today. I did pick Cedric Tillman today. We'll talk about him briefly. One more quarterback that's on my radar, Casey Scheinfeld, just because the past 4 weeks, 3 of those weeks he's had over 20 points fantasy-wise in the standard league, is Bo Nix. And you and I were skeptical with Bo beginning of the year. I liked him at Oregon. I just don't know how he would adapt in the NFL, which he's adapting pretty well. I mean, Denver's not, you and I both were not so happy about Denver beginning of the year, but they're not the pushover like they are with Carolina.
No, and Sean, look, Sean Payton's a good coach. And sometimes you got to consider that and what he can do with quarterbacks. Bo Nix is not ready to be a franchise quarterback yet, but he's got the legs where he can always run in. And he runs that little dink and dunk offense really well. So the other guy I do like Bo Nix too. Now, you say 3 of the past 4 weeks, 2 of those games were Carolina and New Orleans, 2 terrible defenses.
I know that. Okay, I know.
But
I'm trying to trick my audience, but keep
now that Cooper and Puka are back. Matthew Stafford is suddenly an attractive quarterback because you saw what he did when he had him the first game back against Minnesota. Like, he could put up 20 points pretty easy with those receivers. So he's another one I like.
I like Stafford. You're 100% right. He lives in my neighborhood. I've seen him driving around. He drives a Tesla. I've seen him driving around my neighborhood. He is a gunslinger. He's a guy that will throw the ball. And with Williams in the backfield, that Rams offense is looking better and better. And they won last week, Casey, as we talked about before. And they're,
controversially, but
but they can make the playoffs. I mean,
I know
playoffs, but yeah, they can. They're
well, we were talking a few weeks about Cooper Kupp being traded. Now all of a sudden they're in the playoff hunt, so they're absolutely not going to trade.
Yeah, there was rumors going around last week about Kupp being out of LA, going to Pittsburgh, going to this place, going to Tampa Bay, going here, but none of that happened. Casey, any other quarterbacks I should be picking up this week? The Rams are at Seattle, just so you know, so I'm not jumping up and down about that matchup. But
well, if the weather's nice, it could be a shootout because nobody throws more than Seattle. That's the one thing you got going for you there. I mean, I'm on the fence with Justin Herbert. If I'm desperate, like in my one team, I have in my super flex league, I have Brock Purdy and
Brock Montana. Keep going.
And Russ Wilson. So I am hurting at quarterback right now because of.
I like what I saw last night of Russell Wilson. I'm not saying pick him up, but I like what I saw, and I like how Pittsburgh's like becoming a team now that's like throwing first sometimes and first down, which is great. Because they weren't doing that last year, and now they're doing that.
How good does George Pickens look now that he has a quarterback and knows how to throw the deep ball? I mean, he even had 2 touchdowns called back.
I saw that, and
one was on review because his right foot went down twice instead of his right and then his left. So they said he only got 1 foot in, and the other one was ineligible receiver downfield or something. I don't know what the call was, but it was ridiculous. So yeah, I mean.
So we like him. So we like Russell Wilson. People were jumping up and down saying, "Why isn't Fields starting?" And I'm like, "Well, let's see what Russell Wilson does." And he's proved everybody wrong. I mean, he still has it. And even though he fumbled when he ran the ball in the second half, which almost cost him the game, doesn't matter. They won. I mean, you just keep going with Russell Wilson until he fails, I guess. I mean,
what do you want to say to Uncle Ted here, Ross?
Beat the Yankees, come back and
bet the Yankees come back and win the World Series.
I would love that. I just watched this great documentary on Netflix when the Yankees
blew the 3-0 lead to the Red Sox.
Yeah, I just watched that. I recommend that documentary just so you guys know.
2004, baby.
Yeah, that was a great documentary. You guys should watch that. Red Sox.
Not as a Yankees
down
fan.
3-0. I know, but it's just done really well. A lot of documentaries are done horribly. I don't want to get into it, but. Yes, Ted. I hope it's a series. We talked about it earlier. I hope we see 7 games, but hopefully the Yankees can win today. And the Dodgers are starting. It's a bullpen game, so hopefully the Dodgers will just,
I want to bring something up, fantasy football wise.
Go ahead. We're on the running backs now, but go ahead.
When was National Tight Ends Day started?
He saw that. He said,
like,
I was watching.
Everybody's saying National Tight Ends Day, and you see like Kate Otten 80 yards and 2 touchdowns. You got like Travis Kelce got his first one. Laporta got one. Hell, even Adam Troutman in Denver got one.
I mean, it was like every tight end was like excelling yesterday, like on Sunday. It was unbelievable.
Can we do that once a month? Just say it's National Tight Ends Day so we can get some production.
I mean, I thought it was like, when I heard it, I thought they were talking about like girls, but it wasn't. They're talking about football players. And I was like, oh my God, I never knew that there was like a national day for tight ends that we're celebrating here in the NFL or in the country. It's unbelievable. Casey, let's talk running backs. Who was top of your list for running backs to pick up this week?
To me, it's Tyrone Tracy. I mean, we talked about him briefly. But he showed that he's the number 1 running back in New York, right? He's looked so much better than Devin Singletary. There's not a lot of running backs. Alexander Madison might be another one you can put on there. I think he's got the job pretty handily. In Las Vegas, and somebody's got to do something offensively in Vegas. So I think they're going to hand it off a lot.
What's
those
your
are my
thoughts
top
on?
two.
I watched the Cowboys game. You're saying, Ross, why are you watching the Cowboys game? Well, it was on. It was a national televised game, so I watched it. Delvin Cook has been getting a lot of handoffs for the Cowboys,
and I think he proved he never should.
Yeah,
That's how bad he was.
I mean, would you pick him? I mean, I'm just asking because the Cowboys are known.
No, I'm not
feature running
touching.
backs.
I'm not touching Zeke or Dalvin Cook. Rico, they must hate Rico. I don't understand. Rico is much better than both of them. Is Rico Dowdle great? Is he going to be a number one for years to come? Probably not, but he's better than Zeke and
I'm not
Dalvin Cook.
I just don't understand.
It's Jerry Jones being in love with the name, right? Like these are Pro Bowlers, so he wants them to be on his team.
I get it. Casey, the 49ers have this week off. They have a bye week. Kansas City's not playing this week.
No, Rob Jordan Mason.
Mason is hurt.
Doesn't matter. Mason and Guerrero to me are both waiver wire.
I was going to ask about Guerrero. Is he somebody that's on your radar to pick up?
Not anymore. I mean, because all the stuff they're saying is that CMC should be back after the bye. The second McCaffrey comes back, Guerrero and Mason are irrelevant again.
How dare you? Okay, you're right. That's why I asked. Casey, what's your thoughts on Tyler Algiers for Atlanta? He's getting the ball a lot more. I don't know if you see how much volume he's getting.
Yeah.
I mean, they're really
is Bijan Robinson overrated?
Well, let's look at the stats in fantasy points. Yes. People were picking him in the first 3 picks. Casey Scheinfeld, there's McCaffrey, then Rob. I mean, it was like, again, I'm not saying to drop Robinson, but I'm saying is pick up Algiers if he's available in your league, because he's somebody that will get the ball and get some handoffs and even get some throws to him, and B, if Robinson goes down, at least you have the backup, and he's available in like 53% of the leagues. So again, pick him up now.
Yeah, I mean, they've showed they're not going to just make Bijan Robinson the number one, like with a huge ratio. He's getting 60 to 62%, something like that.
He's getting, I mean, Atlanta, Atlanta's like a 1-3 favorite to win their division because Tampa Bay, Carolina, and New Orleans are just horrible. I mean,
Tampa Bay is only horrible because they lost both their receivers.
Yeah,
we were all rooting for Baker Mayfield, and he still had a good game, by the way. I mean, hats off to him. Cade Otton, 2 touchdowns. Did Rachaad White have one? I think he did. So
I think he did too. Casey, any other running backs that you're telling me to pick up this week on waiver wire?
Well, I mean, you can always look at like Kamani Vidal in I nearly said it, Los Angeles for the Chargers. I like Austin Eckler if he's available in Washington. I think because he's the pass.
Oh, let's talk about the Washington game real quick. I mean, Casey, that was unbelievable what that Jaden Daniels did, and to win the game, and the whole
how about
story with the
Chicago, taunting the fans before the play, and then
he was the one that tipped it up in the air, and the guy caught it in the back.
Yep.
I mean that what a great game and what a great story for Jaden Daniels. I mean,
I hope everybody keeps winning. I hope everybody keeps winning, and my Giants keep losing. Now I'm just looking for the draft pick.
I mean, he was great. I mean, let me mention a couple other running backs. Let's see where you're with them. If you're again, Jaylen Warren of the Pittsburgh Steelers. Harris had a great game. I like Warren, but I just don't know how many handoffs he'll get a game. I don't know.
But he catches the balls for Pittsburgh. Look, do I think he's a priority pickup to stick into your lineup? No. I mean, he's at best a flex play on a bye week right now, but he is a really solid player to put into that position because he catches balls out of the backfield. And most of us nowadays play in PPR.
I agree with you 100%. I still like your guy Ray Davis of the Buffalo Bills, even though he doesn't get that.
Well, volume. Cook's been doing good.
I mean, he had 6 carries, 5 of them in the fourth quarter last week. Again, is it great? No, but is a good guy to have on your team in case Cook goes down? Yes. But I mean, the running back position to me this week is the most thinnest position for waiver wire. It's tough to find that gem, but so we're kind of naming a lot of guys that were backups, supposedly, like Algiers and people like that. But let's talk wide receiver. Let's talk about my cover guy, Cedric Tillman of the Browns, who all of a sudden becomes the number one receiver in Cleveland. 2 touchdowns last week for Cedric. This is a guy that was under 50%, before the game started yesterday. I mean, on Sunday. And now this guy, he had eight receptions with 81 yards.
And 2 touchdowns.
Yeah, I mean, this guy's just been on fire. 21 targets in 2 weeks.
Well, he's one of those great contested catch guys. Like, that's just what he specializes in. And with somebody like Jameis Winston, who's happy to throw it into coverage, that's a great guy to have. So
I mean, if you had to pick one guy to pick on waiver wire this week, who would it be? Would it be Cedric?
It would be Cedric Tillman. Yeah. He's to me has the highest ceiling of all the players on the waiver wire. How's that? Short of tight end, short of quarterbacks, obviously quarterbacks.
So quarterbacks, 10-person league, you start one quarterback, they're a dime a dozen. I mean,
even 12-person league. Yeah. So, but I think Cedric Tillman, I really like Jacoby Myers still in Las Vegas as a target monster there. I mean, Brock Bowers, now they're rolling all coverage towards him. So Jacoby Myers ends up getting a little more availability. I also think, especially now that Deontay Johnson is traded to the Ravens, Jacoby Myers could be a trade target for some of these teams. Somebody like Houston who needs somebody to fill in. And Keon Coleman in Buffalo with Devontae Adams there, that opens up the other side of the field for Keon Coleman. And I think he's another one of those super tall catch radius guys. And if he can put it together, the sky's kind of the limit for him too.
What's your thoughts? I know he only had 39 yards, but he did have a run too. And he did go to Arizona State till he transferred to Florida. Ricky Pearsall of the 49ers. I know they have the bye week this week, so if you pick him up, he's not going to be playing for you. You have to wait a week. Is he somebody you think the 49ers will use consistently as a receiver, or do you think they'll spread it out and he won't be relevant?
I think they'll spread. I think especially if McCaffrey comes back, he's the 5th pass catching option there, because you got to imagine 1 and 2 and 3 are going to be McCaffrey, Debo, and Kittle in some order or another. And then
Juwan Jennings, right?
Right. Yeah. So then it's Pearsall. And given that he's a rookie, he missed the first half of the season. I am leaning away from Pearsall.
But he still has his Rolex. He still has that cool goatee.
Yep, and he's still tougher than all of us. That's for sure.
And he had a bullet go through his chest and go through his back, and he's playing football within 2 months, which is pretty good. Better than Dr. Dan Ratner. He'll be crying in his bed. Casey, what other receivers are you eyeing to pick up this week? I mentioned a couple, but
I know
Xavier Legette.
Yep, especially with Deontay Johnson. He's now the number one there. I love this. Just speaks to how poorly run the Carolina Panthers are. Let's give Bryce Young, let's bench him. Okay, let's give him another shot because Dalton's banged up and see what we have in him before we go into the draft next year. But let's trade every receiver, every pass catcher he could possibly have and see how good he does. It's insane to me. But other wide receivers, I mentioned Josh Downs earlier. I like him, especially with Flacco under center. Jalen McMillan, I still like in Tampa Bay. Not the great. I thought he would catch a touchdown last week. He did not, but I still think he's a good one to get. You see that Darius Slayton, even with Neighbors back, still has the trust of Daniel Jones for what that means. And then also, I like Troy Franklin there in Denver with your boy Bo Nix. And Michael Wilson Marvin Harrison had a good game last week, but Michael Wilson was involved too. So he's somebody you can look at.
And then what's your thoughts on Rashad Bateman? Any thoughts on Bateman for Baltimore?
I really like Bateman was coming on the last couple of weeks. I don't know how 3 wide receiver sets are going to look now that they have Deontay Johnson. Unless Zay Flowers is hurt, I wonder if they push Zay into the slot and use Bateman and Deontay on the outside. And then in Cleveland, obviously we talked about Cedric Tillman, but there was Elijah Moore. I know he had a bunch of targets. I'm not sure how many. I think it was actually more than Cedric Tillman. And then there's Jerry Jeudy, but I'm not sure it's always going to be Elijah Moore. And so because Jerry Jeudy, I think it's always going to be Tillman. So that's why he's a little lower down for me. I want to see it happen more than once.
DeMario Douglas of New England, I think he's one of May's favorite targets, him and Hunter Henry.
Well, is May coming back next week? He left with
that's a great question. I thought you knew the answer.
Protocol. So I don't know.
I don't know. It might be back to Brissett, and if that's him, then all bets are off.
Right. Then we go back to what the first 5 weeks of.
He's horrible. I'm just looking at receivers. We kind of mentioned everybody that I liked. There's really, I'm not going to say Trey Tucker of the Raiders. The Raiders.
Well, if they trade Jacoby Myers, he'll be the number 1.
There you go. Well, there you go. Who's looking good and still under 60% that I watched the Bills game is Keenan Coleman.
Yeah, I talked about him a little bit. Yeah.
Yeah, you did. And week 8 catching 5 of 7 targets, 70 yards and a touchdown. And I think Allen's having more. I think he has more trust with him right now, and I feel that he could be the number 1 receiver by the end of the year. I really do.
Amari Cooper is still going to be hard to take the mantle from.
Yeah, but he doesn't. I don't know.
Allen's only had 2 games with him. Let's give him a couple more games and see how it looks coming down the stretch.
Casey, let's talk tight end. I'll mention a couple, and I want your opinion. Zach Ertz of the Washington. I'm not going to say the R word. I'll say the Commanders. Zach Ertz, obviously, I think him and Daniels have a little connection together. He does get the targets.
I think that's his ball. I think that's his security blanket.
Yep.
That's
somebody I think is going to have a huge game this week because they play Carolina, and when you play Carolina, you score points. And I think Carr's back this week. He's practicing today or tomorrow, excuse me. And Carr means a lot to the Saints. The Saints will be firing their coach, getting rid of their staff, and probably getting rid of a lot of people in the front office in the offseason. So if you're looking for a new job, you may want to apply in New Orleans. Taysom Hill, I think, will get some. I bet he gets 1 touchdown on Sunday. What do you think about that?
He might. That's a bold take. It depends. If Derek Carr's back, I don't know if that increases or decreases his chances, honestly. There's some talk that Derek Carr will be back for the next game. I know New Orleans fans everywhere are hoping for it as they've seen what Spencer Rattler can do for you.
No, he was horrible. The Saints have scored like under 10 points the past 3 games. Horrible.
They look
the Saints started off 2-0. They're horrible. The Saints are just a bad team. Bad. I don't think Carr's going to save the franchise either. I think they'll just be bad the rest of the season. Will Dissly of the Chargers has a connection with Herbert. He gets the ball. So if you need a tight end, we just mentioned 3 of them. Any more tight ends, Casey, that you're thinking of?
I like Noah Fant up there in Seattle.
Is he over 60%?
No, he's at 30%.
Oh, wow.
He's averaging, I think, 3.5 catches per game, which is decent for a tight end. And they throw the ball more than any other team. And the Rams are notoriously bad against tight ends. So that's a good matchup for this week. You mentioned Zach Ertz, who I like. Adam Troutwine in Denver seems to have passed Dulcich.
He caught a touchdown last National Tight Ends Day.
As the tight end in Bo Nix's offense. So he's somebody, if you're desperate, you can look for. But again, you're not looking at sexy when you're looking at tight end. Let's talk for
defenses really quick. I'll give you my favorite matchups who are under 60%. The Titans, Tennessee. You're saying, Ross, you're going to start the Tennessee defense. Yeah, they're playing New England in Tennessee, in Nashville. I like that matchup for Tennessee, especially if May's not playing. I love that matchup, actually. And I'm sure you can get the Titans defense pretty easily. Another good matchup I like, just because they're playing the Jaguars or the Eagles.
Yeah.
Eagles defense is just getting better and better every week, and they're getting healthier. And the Jaguars are just in disarray. I mean, they're just a bad team. I wish I could say something good about them, but I can't. They're just horrible. That's another defense I like. And then, I was going to say the Colts are playing the Vikings in Minnesota, but when Joe Falco plays, they score points. I mean, the Colts, when the Colts win, that's going to be a high scoring game. I mean, I don't know if I would take that game.
I actually like your Bengals going at home against the Raiders. I mean, that's not the worst matchup. You can also take the other side of the New England Tennessee game and take that Tennessee defense, especially if Drake May's not playing.
I said Tennessee.
Well, then I'll take New England against Tennessee. I'll take the other side.
New England's going to be on the field for so long, Casey Sheinfeld.
Did you see the Detroit game though?
Yeah, wasn't that?
I mean, that was awful. So 52 points, and your quarterback only throws for 85 yards.
Yeah, but he had 3 touchdowns.
I know.
And he won the game, so it doesn't matter.
All right, Ross.
Okay, Casey. So we'll be back on Thursday with Dr. Dan Ratner. Casey, I don't think you'll be with us, but I'll be here.
I'll be out of town attending a family.
You'll be out of town, secret meeting. We're not going to talk about it. But 1 o'clock Pacific, 4 o'clock Eastern.
Yeah.
And then last night was a sports equinox. Is what called?
Equinox.
Yeah. Equinox. Right. We had pro football, pro baseball, pro basketball, pro hockey all on one night, which is unbelievable. It only happens 3 times a year. And it was great. So Casey, I'll see you next week.
Yes. Good luck on Thursday, guys. Have a good fantasy weekend, and we will see you on Thursday.